Hello and welcome to the Naturopathic-Business on a Shoestring podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Smith, a naturopathic medical doctor who is passionate about the business side of medicine and providing quality naturopathic medical care in the most financially friendly way possible. Thanks for being here. I am so excited you are here for the inaugural episode of this podcast, the Naturopathic-Business on a Shoestring podcast, which has a name that's really awfully too long, so I might just call it the Shoestring Podcast. But either way, you are here because you want to learn more about how to start a business, a naturopathic business specifically, and how to make the most of your time as a provider, but also saving your wallet in the process. The goal of this podcast is to help balance all of that, to share my experiences as a naturopathic doctor who has started his own practice and the journey that has taken, the details and the things that you need to think about while you are doing so. As we get going, I just wanted to start with my story. I am a NUNM grad, just recently completed my education at the National University of Natural Medicine in Portland, Oregon. Before that, I attended the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, where I received a Master of Science in Biomedical Science, not really related to naturopathic medicine per se, but it was a great experience. And then my bachelor's degree before that was in biophysics. Done a lot with science. But through that process, throughout that education, I've taken as many business classes as I could. I've always just been fascinated by it. If I was to go back and redo my undergrad again, I probably would do a business minor easily. But that didn't happen. Didn't even get a minor. I was one class shy of a chemistry minor, and I didn't want to take analytical chemistry, but here we are. Anyway, I love business. I love the business side of things. During my senior year of undergrad, I took a freshman level accounting class just for fun. And my master's degree, they had some classes on entrepreneurship and technology commercialization. I took a class on human resources there. And I've just taken as many opportunities as I can to learn about marketing and internet marketing specifically, promoting myself on the internet through social media, through websites, through email lists, and so many other things. And while I was at NUNM doing my naturopathic medical school training, they definitely had a program, or they had some classes for business. We had them starting in our third year and going into our fourth year. And it was a mixed experience. For me, I really liked it. I really loved those business classes just to think about what I wanted to do in the future, my business that I wanted to start, the practice, what it would look like, and to start creating that on paper in my head, documenting things, creating a business plan, and so forth. And it was also challenging. The teacher, he was an adjunct professor. He worked on his day job as a business consultant. He would record a few little things, but then just give us resources and homework. And it was just this self-study class almost. And it wasn't as much hands-on. We did get some really good jurisprudence training, enjoyable that class. But everything else was just kind of remote and on our own. And it was hard because I loved it, but I recognized that there's many of my colleagues, my peers, that struggled with it. As I have graduated now and look around to my peers, many are completing residencies. They dove into amazing residency programs. There are many that I know of who have dived into joining a practice and are now practicing as a naturopathic doctor somewhere, and they joined a practice. I haven't yet heard of, but that doesn't mean that there doesn't exist, of many who have started their own practice. The way that my journey worked out is I graduated and things didn't work out maybe the way that I was hoping for residency and other things. So I had the opportunity and felt compelled to start my own practice. So I moved my family after graduation to Idaho Falls, Idaho, which is in East Idaho. We're about an hour and a half ish, 2 hours away from Yellowstone, 3 hours north of Salt Lake City, about 4.5 hours from Boise. You kind of get the idea. We're in the middle of potato country, and it's amazing. I love it here. And I'm the only licensed naturopathic medical doctor, NMD, in the Idaho Falls area. In Idaho, as in with Utah and Arizona, the licensure is NMD instead of ND. But equivalently, there's no trained naturopathic doctors with 4-year education, NPLEX, all of those things here in the city. So I'm the first and only one right now. Correction, there were some before me, but they've since moved on. So I'm the only one now. And with that, I've needed to save money as much as I can. I'm married. I've got my wonderful wife, got 2 kids, and I'm providing as much as I can for them. And we experienced, I think, what many naturopathic graduates experience, whatever you call it, the graduation cliff. I don't know. I'm sure there's maybe more fancy ways of saying that. But the experience of graduating, you're not getting any more student loans, yet now you have NPLEX to study for in a month, so you can't work because you're studying full time. And then after NPLEX, there's another month and a half-ish where you don't know what your life is going to be because you don't know if you passed or not. And while you hope you passed, you can't guarantee it. So it's really hard to make plans. And that's kind of the predicament that I found myself in, just kind of doing NPLEX. I'm not able to work over the summer after NPLEX. I applied for lots of jobs because I didn't know what my future would hold. I applied to, I think, at least over 80 full-time positions of various flavors, tapping in from lots of my previous experience. Didn't get accepted. So I think that really helped me realize that I needed to start a practice, to do what I was trained to do as an NMD, and to just jump right in. So that's what I did. With not a lot of money and not a lot of direct help or supervision. It was just all me. And I think that's epitomizes the idea of an entrepreneur. Someone who just does it, even though they don't know how, they figure it out. They make it work. And they work hard. It's been a journey, and I've learned a lot. And one of my purposes of this podcast is to share those things that I've learned so that hopefully it can benefit the future generations of naturopathic doctors and other like-minded holistic providers who are wanting to provide amazing care, but not having that business training that maybe they want. Going back to those business classes, it was hard because a lot of my peers didn't want to do it. They didn't see the value of why we were doing these assignments, marketing or whatever, because they were just going to go to an established practice. Or maybe one of my peers is an amazing researcher. He's doing research right now, and that's his career, and I think it's amazing. But he's not starting a practice. So where's the benefit of business training in that regard? I really believe that all naturopathic doctors need to have a business background, a basic business background. It's not really part of our curriculum and our training. It kind of is, but it really isn't in the way that we need it. If somebody really wanted a business background, they'd get an MBA, not a naturopathic doctorate degree. And that's, I think, the challenge that we have as a profession. There's not a lot of practices being started. There's some that are figuring it out, but I think a lot are just joining practices and helping them grow. And that's great. We need that. And I want to support even those providers. Doctors who join a practice need to have a strong brand. They need to have a strong presence. They need to know what they're getting into financially, whether they are independent contractors or whether they're joining and with ownership of a clinic, part ownership with another provider or something. There's the business side that we need. And I hope in bite-sized amounts that this podcast, whether you're watching it on YouTube or listening to it on the audio, can provide that information for you. It's kind of like a chicken and the egg cycle, where not a lot of NDs go into business, but then we're not really good at business, so then we don't pursue it. And it's just this cycle, and I want to break that cycle. So what are we going to cover in this podcast? I want like everything relating to starting a business. There are so many things, so many topics that I've thought about over the past many months of starting this practice that I think need to be discussed and need to be shared. So we'll cover the basics. What is your dream? What is the vision of what you want to do and what you want to become as a provider? There's the financial, there's the legal, there's the marketing, the networking, and there's the operations, like labs that you're ordering and procedures and hiring staff and developing workflows and systems that can support your growing practice. I hope that this can also be beneficial for existing providers too. Whether you have been in practice for 2 months, 2 years, 20 years, I hope that this can be helpful in improving your practice and enhancing your ability to provide amazing care for patients and being successful at doing so. One of my pet peeves, in a way, is that we undervalue ourselves as a profession. We have the ability to help change people's lives in amazing ways. And we are worth so much the more than I think we give ourselves credit for. We have amazing hearts, but that doesn't mean we need to give our services away. It means we can innovate more, as Dr. Megan Walker talks about, and advance our personal practice, but our profession in sharing and reaching so many more people that need our services. We often talk about this healthcare shortage, at least in North America, and we can help fill that. And we can fill that, and we can get paid really well to fill that. And I think it comes first from recognizing our own value that we have as individuals, but also as providers, people who have taken out hundreds of thousands of dollars of loans, who have studied for years, who have mastered very amazing topics. You think about what the NPLEX covered. We're not only doing the anatomy and the physiology, but we're doing the pharmacology and the herbs and the homeopathy and the nutrition and the IVs and everything else, the minor surgery and whatnot. There's so much that we need to know, so many things that we're trained to do. We need to keep it fresh. There's CEs that we need to take. There's licensure. We are amazing people. We need to recognize that. We need to allow ourselves to get paid what we're worth. And that is part of my hope with this, is that we can work toward that. There are many amazing resources out there. I want to say many. There are a few really good resources out there. Many might be generous in the quantity, but the ones that are out there, I want to give a shout out to the naturopathic business community. Dr. Mike Gonzalez is a grad from SCNM. It's now Sonoran. He started the Naturopathic Business Podcast, Naturopathic Business Company, where he's helping and he's interviewing amazing providers who have done great things and sharing their stories on their podcast. I highly recommend it. I'll share a link in the description of this podcast for you to listen to. I highly recommend him. I consider him a colleague and a friend. I've worked with him, and I think he's amazing. I've also listened to a little bit of the Naturopathic CEO podcast that covers the journey of Dr. Alexander Mayer and Dr. Matthew Hernandez as they start their practice and what that has evolved to. Another great resource. There's the book, Naturopathic Business Basics, a step-by-step guide to starting and running a naturopathic business by Dr. Jenny Bennett. that's a book that I've looked through and feel like there's a lot of good information there. Yet, even with all of those, I feel like there's been a need for simple step-by-step processes and instructions on how to go through things. I'm a very detail-oriented person, and that those details don't exist as far as training goes. What are all of those finite details? Some of them you just need to figure out, but there's a lot that we can talk about that can help bridge that education gap and help with preparing you and others for to be successful as a naturopathic doctor. So we'll be diving into lots of topics over the course of the next while, however long this podcast goes for. I'll be sharing my experience starting a business with these different topics and things that I've learned, recommendations, resources that I found helpful. Sometimes you might need to consult an accountant or a lawyer, and so recognizing that this podcast doesn't constitute any legal or financial advice, but hopefully will be a great resource. And I hope this is not just for NDs. More than naturopathic doctors can benefit from this, whether you're an acupuncturist or Chinese medicine provider. I've worked with many amazing providers of that specialty at NUNM. I know there are many elsewhere, chiropractors, massage therapists, others in that holistic, like-minded community that are not mainstream conventional medicine. We're not accepting insurance, or maybe we do, but we're not part of those systems, and we're not getting that training in our programs. I hope that can bridge that need and that gap. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey as I share my story, and with the hope that it can help with your story. Before you go, drop a comment if you're on YouTube in the below. What topics do you want to see covered? What questions do you have? I'd love to hear and customize this experience for you. If you're listening to this elsewhere, send me an email, put my email below, what you want to get out of this, because I'll make it what I can, but I also want to make sure it's what you want and what you need to be successful. So until the next time we visit, I hope you have a great day and keep going. Thank you for joining me on the Naturopathic Business on a Shoestring podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, share it with a friend, and we'll see you next time.